Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. Friday, February 7th, 3 p.m. Eastern. What a week. What a week. What a week. What a week for the Buckeyes. Did you know it was National Signing Day on Wednesday? No, you didn't. It didn't really matter. Ohio State already had filled out its class. It was a non-issue. We seem to think we know what the staff is going to look like, at least on the offensive side. I've seen some questions in there about that. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer on the defensive side. Oh, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. Are you watching? Do you care? I'm there for the commercials. I'm excited about Puppy Bowl, but we'll talk about the Super Bowl too if you would like here on this Friday edition of the Big Me Kickoff. Did not really promote it all that much. I did everything but put it on the message board. So I kind of came up with a fancy graphic and everything else, a name for the show and everything, and then didn't necessarily do a good job of promoting it with all of the people who probably are going to watch it over on BuckeyeHuddle.com. So we will figure that out. Let me get to some hellos right now. I just finished recording something for the weekend with Mark Givler on recruiting, so be sure to keep it locked in here to youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle to see that over the weekend. Hello, Robert Howard. How are you doing? Not much here. I'm going to make a lasagna for dinner tonight. That is, if I look distracted, it's because I'm just kind of thinking about how I would need to time that out because I got a 6 o'clock call that I need to be on for one of my side hustles and, go from there. Connor, we're going to get here and I'll hit you next, Billy Tuesday, and then jump back to another Robert Howard comment. Saw the Charles Bentley was in the Woody. Potential assistant OL hire. Any news on DC? The DC, I mean, we still keep hearing that it's going to be an internal promotion, in my opinion. And then word is that they may be getting Joe Cullen from the Kansas City Chiefs, and there'll be some sort of configuration there. But you're going to have to just get through the weekend, maybe even through Monday. Maybe by Tuesday, we should know more on the defensive side of the ball. The Zach Smith world says it's a done deal. Now, here's the thing yes, I saw the tweets. I follow Charles Bentley on Twitter. I saw him posting from the Woody. I recognized exactly where he was. We used to be in that part of the Woody back during the end of the Tressel era. It was around the urban era that they started to move us out of there. Now we really are only in the Biggs lobby and in the indoor facility, on the indoor field. But I knew exactly where he was. There's a lot of talk about, make him an assistant OL coach. I think what you do is you look at him maybe more as an analyst. I'm not going to lie. I have not watched the Zach Smith show. I don't watch a lot of other shows. I've got my own show to do. I don't want to sit there and let somebody else's words get into my mind, and then I start to parrot what they're saying, and I'm giving you their thoughts and not my thoughts. So it's a very directed decision on my point not to watch a lot of other shows. So I don't do that. I want you to do. Somebody says you should. Zach is cool. I know Zach. I knew him when he was a coach at Ohio State. I don't have time to watch other shows. I just don't. I work a full-time job, a part-time job, and I have kind of a seasonal job. So I don't have time to watch any other shows. I'm just not going to do it. And again, it's not I don't like this person. I don't like that person. It's nothing to do with it. I just don't have. I listen to music when I have downtime. I listen to music. That's what I do. So back to the point. I think you can sit there and have somebody come in as an analyst. If Charles has his academy, is he going to want to sit there and shutter that to do this for a year or 2 years or 3 years? Or or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know necessarily what his motivation is and everything else. I mean, obviously, LaCharles Bentley was a tremendous player at Ohio State. Obviously, he's been in the business of developing players. It would make a lot of sense in some regards to have to have the Virginia Tech guy, to have Bowen as your recruiter / whatever, and have Bentley do more, in the developmental side of things. I don't really want LaCharles being my recruiting evaluator. I go back to the only class that he really had direct input for Ohio State on the offensive line, and it just was a class that never came together. It never really had any success. And I know that's you can't judge something on account of one. That's unfair. I mean, there are no trends that are developed there, but it was 5 players and none of them really had any sort of traction with their Ohio State careers. Brought in a center that was too small to play center, and if you're not Jacoby Boren, you can't be a completely undersized center. Jacoby Boren could, but other than Jacoby Boren, and that's just because he's a Boren, and they're just tough SOBs. I don't know. I've really tried to stay out of the Bentley situation because I don't have a good read on that one. I don't have a good read on it. A lot of these others I feel like I do, but I just don't. So let me get to some questions, and I think I've seen more LaCharles stuff, and we can have the conversation because once again, you guys program the show. I'm hoping this is a shorter show. As I said, I've got a 6:00 call, which again, that's 3 hours. We can go for at least 2.5 hours. I got to rest my voice because they're going to expect me to talk on this call. So I need to be good for that. Billy Tuesday saying, "Hey, Kevin, how's it going, Billy?" Robert, I'd be surprised if LaCharles Bentley has any interest at all walking away from what he does now to become a college assistant. Again, it's a case of sometimes I've gone as far as I can with this pursuit. Let me try that pursuit, or, I'm completely fulfilled with this pursuit. Let me try a new challenge. I mean, I've #stick to sports. You see a lot of times on both sides of the aisle where people have been very successful in business, and I'm not talking about the top office, will leave to go do a cabinet position or something like that. I mean, they're not going to make, you're making $40 million in the business world, and you're going to go to a cabinet position where you're capped at making $175,000. So I get it, but I don't have a read on that one. And quite honestly, it's not going to be one of the 10 counting coaching positions. It's just not. There's just not that the number isn't there unless something is happening, unless there is somebody moving out that I'm unaware of, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, but I would think I would have heard about it by now. They're just not that position there. Robert also says lasagna is a legitimate distraction. Well, and I'm not doing my usual lasagna where I would actually make the red sauce and everything else. I'm using jarred sauce. This is just a case of I had a pound of ground beef and a pound of Italian sausage that needed to get used, or use it or lose it, and I didn't have to go to the store to get much. I had to get some ricotta and some mozzarella cheese, and that's really it. I had lasagna noodles. I have all that. So I have a feeling I'll start prepping it at about 5:30 and hopefully get it in the oven while I'm on the call, and hopefully the call won't go too long. Billy Tuesday, don't understand why a Super Bowl winning coach would want to move down to college. Well, I mean, we sit there and we see the NFL as the end of the rainbow for a lot of people because it is. But at some point, do you just want to sit there and have new challenges? Do you want to sit there and work with collegiate players? Do you want to, have you maxed out what it is that you're doing at the NFL level? I mean, have you been pigeonholed? Well, you're doing this, and that's all you can do. You can only be a D-line coach at this level. Whereas at Ohio State, I mean, even though you're only going to be listed as, whatever, I don't even know what the titles necessarily would be. I mean, because, Larry obviously is the defensive line coach, but you're going to do this, and this, and, potentially maybe make more money. I mean, head coaches make ungodly sums. And again, so do offensive coordinators. Chip Kelly making $6 million a year with the Raiders. But we all have our preconceived notions of what we think the hierarchy of coaching is, and whether or not it's the NFL versus college. And I don't know if I would sit there and call it moving down. Maybe it's a lateral move, and maybe because it's from the NFL and the popularity of the NFL to college. I mean, I'm always going to be a college fan. If you told me that I could push a button, one league had to go away, see it, NFL. I mean, I am 5,000 times more invested in college than I am in the NFL. I just am. NFL doesn't pay my salary. Neither does college directly. It does, but it doesn't. So, there you go. Connor, so potential Greg Madison, Jeff Hafley set up for Matty G and Colin. Wonder if LJ would want that. If that happens, it's not LJ's choice. It's Ryan's choice. Ryan's the head coach. LJ doesn't have any say in this. If he doesn't like it, he can leave. I mean, and I'm not trying to be curt or cold or whatever. I'm just saying that it's not his choice. Ryan is the head coach. Ryan is the coach who just signed, pending board of trustees approval, a 3-year extension to make $12.5 million a year. It's just like on the other side. I mean, if, Keenan Bailey doesn't necessarily have a choice about what's happening on the offensive side of the ball with Brian Hartline getting elevated and everything else. It's just how it works. So, Clever over here saying, hearing Joe Colin is the next DC. It hasn't been announced because he's coaching in the Super Bowl. Now, whether or not he's the DC and whether or not it's Matty G or Walt or both, I mean, if it becomes like a junta or, just two or whatever the situation is, there's going to be some sort of situation there. That is my understanding of how this is going to work out. We will see. Neil Harris says, Kevin Afternoon, my brother, 100. How are you doing, Neil? Glad that you could join us here on the Big Meat Kickoff here on a Friday late afternoon. Hope everybody has big plans for the weekend. I'm going out with a buddy to a local brewery on Saturday for a couple of pops. I'm sure I'll get to share what I know about this, that, and the other with the football team there, but looking forward to that. And then I don't really have any plans on Sunday. I'm just going to stay home. It's kind of amateur hour out there with the drunks and everything else. I just don't want to be out in that situation. Not that I'm afraid that I'm going to be drinking and I'm going to be the amateur. I'm worried about the other amateurs out there. So I'll probably just stay home and just eat leftover lasagna or something. I don't know. I have some chicken in the fridge thawing right now, but I don't know. Maybe I'll make something new for that day. Caveman, going back to kind of talking about the Zach Smith show. I get that. It's a smart thing doing media. You want your opinions, not clouded ones. And that's ultimately it. I mean, and the reality is I got a lot of friends in radio, like in radio, not even just podcasting world. I don't listen to them. I try to just have my own opinions, right or wrong, good or bad. They're my opinions. And that way everything's authentic, because I'm not trying to recite what somebody said. So I'm going to repeat what this person said so I can sound smarter or dumber or whatever. You're just going to get what I think about things. And as I try to do more shows a week, I'm having to become even more aware of not allowing myself to pick up what other people are saying. I mean, and maybe that's not exactly the right thing, because I'm going to talk to sources. You're going to hear what I think from what I hear from sources, but I don't want to listen to this site show and that site show and that site show. So I just don't do it. And it just makes my life easier. It just makes my life a lot easier because I could sit there and sitting on the sofa at home if I'm not working up in my office and have the TV off. I mean, maybe listening to satellite radio or something. I could listen to stuff while I was working, but it's really difficult to write content while you're listening to people talking. You sit there and you let your mind drift for a second. You realize you've transcribed what you've been listening to for 5 minutes. So I'm pretty dumb. I have to focus on the task at hand. Multitasking, I'm good at it, but not always. I'm trying to keep the show of what I'm putting up here. I'm not going to get into a he said about other shows. I don't want to be brought up on other shows in a negative manner, so I'm not going to bring up stuff in a negative manner. Really, there's only a couple people in this industry that I don't like, and we'll leave it at that. Billy Tuesday says Charles Bentley just needs help to recruit whomever Bowen brings on campus. So, I mean, Bowen is a hell of a recruiter. I think Bowen is a tremendous recruiter. I think that Bowen does not need anybody there co-piloting his recruitment. Here's another reality. As Kevin continues to bag on Charles Bentley, not really, but some people may think about this. None of these kids know who the hell Charles Bentley is. Just because you know who Charles Bentley is, none of these kids know who Charles Bentley is. And you're like, well, he's a great Buckeye. How the hell do they not know who he is? Charles Bentley is 45 years old. Charles Bentley, is what, 20 years out of the league? 18 years out of the league? I don't even know when did he leave the league? I'm pulling up his Wikipedia right now. He played through 07. 17, it'll be 18 years out of the league. The kids he's recruiting or would be recruiting are 15, 16, 17 years old. They have no idea who the hell he is. You know who he is. Their parents may know who he is, but they don't know who he is. So there's this, there's not a name cachet that's working there. Now he can sit there and say, well, here are my credentials, and that's going to be impressive. Absolutely. But they're not going to be like starstruck. They're not going to be starstruck over somebody that they don't know. I mean, you know what? It'd be a lot more exciting if Paris Johnson were Ohio State's offensive line coach. At least they probably know who he is. All right. End of rant. Just keep going here. Let me just keep going here. Glasswing Butterfly. Hello, Kevin and the Buckeye fam. Still on the natty high? I am. I think there's still a lot of people on the natty high. If Ohio State weren't on a natty high, fans would be losing their minds over coaching vacancies and everything else. So everybody still seems to be very happy. There still seems to be a lot of kumbaya going on, which makes my life a hell of a lot easier working on an Ohio State website. I'm not having to break up as many fights, unless it's a fight over, I love Ohio State more than you do. No, I do. No, you can all love Ohio State the same amount. It's all good. But yeah, I think everybody's really happy. Let's get to spring ball, and then, we'll have a lot to talk about there. I think this high will run for a couple months. Let me just keep going here. Again, I'm just trying to stay, you guys can talk about what you're going to talk about in the chat. I just don't want to put it up on the screen. Bill Evans, many guys stay in the NFL long enough to qualify for a pension, then go to college. Stan Drayton left OSU to go to the Bears because he needed 2 years to qualify for the pension and then return to CFB. Yeah, I mean, I think in Ohio, you want to get fully vested in OPERS, which, I don't have any of, but is the pension. You want to get the NFL pension. There's a lot to it. I don't disagree with a word that Bill Evans is saying there. So, there's a lot of movement that, you can't necessarily explain. And, people will take jobs for whatever reason. So there you go. Christopher Sowers, Joe Cullen would be a recruiting magnet for when Larry leaves. I mean, Larry's not going to be able to coach forever. And, I'll throw out a scenario. Maybe there will be some point of where he just doesn't want to get back out on the road and recruit, and he can go into an analyst role, and like an emeritus analyst role. And that could open up one of the 10 counting spots, and he can still do what he probably enjoys best. And that's developing players and the counseling of young men. I don't think that there has to be the day where it's like, all right, Larry, turn in your keys, you're out, go away. I think there can be a continuance plan. They can continue with him in a different role. So there you go. JM says, interesting. Cullen has ties to Mass. Yeah, he's from New England, if I remember right. But he's also, I think he's a couple years older than me. You get to a certain point where it's like, all right, do you really have ties up in an area anymore? I'm from Southern California. I moved away in 1987. I don't know if I could walk into a high school that I knew pretty well there and be like I have some sort of N. So Cullen has a very diverse resume of, a lot of places that he has been through. I think that, I think there's a lot to that. I think there's a lot to it. Christopher also says that, come on, click. Yeah. There it goes. Having a Super Bowl winning coach as DC would have recruits flocking to play for him. Yeah, I mean, it certainly would be a positive. It wouldn't be a negative. Would it be the decision, defining point? I don't think it would be. If everybody was just going for the coach with success or whatever, I mean, kind of like Nick Saban, I mean, they wouldn't miss out. I mean, he would just be able to go out and select the 22 to 28 kids that he wants. But with that being said, I do think it's like, well, look, I mean, I've been doing this here, at various levels, but he's not the DC. He wasn't the DC in Kansas City. He was the D-line coach. So, I mean, I guess I theoretically could punch holes in the statement and be like, well, it was B, not exactly A, and everything else. But I think it's a positive for certain. I think for certain. But if if it were the end all be all, I think that you would sit there and you would see coaches from the Super Bowl winning team just dispersed into the wind to go get their collegiate paydays and everything else. So I don't know if it's necessarily, a true equivalency. David Greenshield, Kevin, Super Bowl prediction. I'm going 27-24 Chiefs. Haters gonna hate. I'm a hater. I can't stand the Chiefs. Don't like the Eagles either. This is seriously like the IRS and the Homeowners Association playing a football game and me wanting to just like completely like light the field on fire while they're on there. I don't even know why I'm watching the game. No, I do know because I got to talk about it probably on the air on Monday. So give me Philly. I think that Kansas City, while it's still what it is, I just don't think they've been super dominant this year. And it's like, well, heart of a champion. They're coming back and and winning games and doing this, that, and the other. So I don't know. Give me Philly 28-23. I don't know. I have a couple of bets on the game, and by that I think I have $25. I have three parlays, a 10, and a 5. And that's as far as I want to go on it. And I'm only betting with profits right now. So if I hit one of them, I'll still come to work on Monday. But like one of them was like $10 to pay like $6.90. So I would be pretty thrilled if I hit that one. Let me keep scrolling here. Neil Harris says, I'm now part of the Bold and Bearded Brother fraternity. I'm working on it. I'm taking I'm doing stuff with Beard Club. I'm taking the vitamins. They are horrible. I mean, they're like, oh, they're vanilla flavored, like vanilla poo. I mean, they're awful. I don't take them every day because I just like don't want to choke them down. and I have beard oil, and I haven't been good about using the beard oil, so I need to do that. So we'll give it a shot. I'm just trying a change of pace. The old joke was, oh, it would take you forever to grow a beard. And that's true. It has taken me forever to get to this point. I finally got it trimmed up last week. So I don't look like just a really bad Amish person. So we'll see what I do. Troy V, I am making wings and ribs for the game. Just me and my 3-year-old great nephew. Sunday, we're going to get fat. I mean, got to get these kids started right at a young age. Wings and ribs for certain. Probably, have them go with the drummies and not the flats. Just a little bit easier not to sit there and choke on a bone. And then with the ribs, I love making ribs. I love making ribs more than I like eating ribs. And I still like to eat ribs, so don't get me wrong. But I have more fun making a lot of food than I do eating a lot of food. It's like, oh, Kevin, you're fat. I'm lazy. I'm not fat. I'm just lazy. I need to fix that. I need to fix that for sure. Let's just keep going through. Doug Shepard Sr., Glasswing, I'm not coming down from my natty high until another team wins it. There you go. It'll be interesting to see what happens after the Texas game. And I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but what happens after the Texas game, if Ohio State struggles, even if Ohio State wins it, but it's not really a clean game, do we get oh no, here we go again. Schedule maker, Ohio State did this to themselves, not doing any favors, having Texas right out of the gate. It's going to be a 1-2, 1-3, 2-3 type of game. It's gonna be awesome. So if you're planning on being in Columbus, start looking for tickets now, because I don't think they're going to be cheap. Asian Posturine is here. Hey, Kevin, I'm listening too. So there you go. I appreciate you listening, Asian Posh. I told you that we would be on at 3, and we were. So I'm glad to have you here, Doreen. I am very happy about that. But yeah, as I said, I wanted to do a short show. We're already at 30 minutes or close to 30 minutes. So we'll go about an hour or so. Again, I think this is more of a catch-up show than anything else. I will answer your questions. I'm not going to get into this show versus that show versus another show, though. As I said a little bit earlier, going through some hellos and everything else. We're just going to keep going through there. Doreen's got a pop, so she says she'll be listening. Not everybody can listen to the show live. You can listen to it's going to be on YouTube forever and ever and ever and ever. And you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting channels as well. Let's just keep going here. But Bentley has his teaching academy. I bet he's known by a lot of high school kids. No, he's not. I mean, a few, but kids across the nation, no. It's like I think it was Tuesday. I did a show, and people are like, "Well, what about Eddie George as an analyst?" I'm like, "Well, first and foremost, he's got a head coaching job, but secondly, none of these kids know who Eddie George is, really. I mean, yeah, maybe they know the name because they've heard their parents talk about him, but it's not a current name. You forget how young these kids are, unless you work in the industry or are a parent yourself of teenagers. You forget how young they are, and every year that I go on Southern Swing and Mark and I talk to these kids, and it's a case of them sitting there. It's like, oh yeah, I remember watching Ohio State, and then you're like, oh, okay, they're going to talk about the Maurice Clarett or whatever. No, not a chance. They don't remember Maurice Clarett. We're lucky if they remember the 14 season. That's 10 years ago. And if you're 17, that means you were 7 at that point. And while I certainly have memories of when I was 7 and 6 and 5, I'm not necessarily remembering a lot of people. Yeah, I remember watching the Dodgers in 1977 when I was 6. I remember that Reggie Jackson made me cry in the World Series, that son of a bitch. But, I just it's not the same. It's not the same. You bring in the guy because of what he can do, not what his name represents. His name doesn't mean anything to them. And that's a reality. That's just a reality at that point. Let me just keep scrolling here. Bill Evans says, hit the thumbs up button. And I agree. I agree with that. Hit that thumbs up button. That would really help us out. Let me keep going here. Red Skelton was the funniest guy, and he never cursed. Yeah, on air Kevin and off air Kevin are very different vocabularies. I do cuss a little on the show, not a lot. And when I do, 98% of the time I do it, it's for effect. I know I'm about to swear. I did drop an F-bomb on the last solo show I did by accident. That one was not planned, and you saw me look really embarrassed at the moment that I did it. I was like, oh, I did not mean to do that. But 98% of the time, it's planned when I do it. And I try to limit it to one or two a show. It's for effect. There's certain words that I will use, certain words that I won't use. But, we'll see. Mozart's Ghost says Kroger was a war zone today. I went to Kroger before the first ice storm. I don't really know how icy it actually got here. But I didn't want to be stuck here with no food or just having to eat like expired cans of chicken noodle soup or something. And it was pretty nutso then, but I can only imagine how bad it is today as people get ready for the big game. I thought about doing like some Chex Mix, like homemade Chex Mix out on the smoker, and then realized that it's one of these things that it's actually cheaper to just buy it pre-done than it is. It's better when you make it yourself. You can control the flavor, you can control the heat, you can do a lot of things there. You can really cut down the pretzel mix. I don't want a bunch of pretzels in my Chex Mix. A little is fine. With it probably being the cheapest of all of the elements, they put like a ton in there, and I'm like, I don't need that much. That's just all the moisture in my mouth disappears. But yeah, I'm sure that Kroger and Giant Eagle and whatever the supermarket in your neighborhood are all probably a mess right now. Glasswing Butterfly, I'm with you on the Super Bowl. Kevin wanted CJ and the Texans to get a shot. Well, it was a weird year for the Texans this year. I mean, you sit there and you deal with some injuries, and did CJ deal with a little bit of a sophomore slump, and they had to go and make some changes on the coaching staff. I think that year 3 should be a lot better, but there's still what he did year 1 with the pieces around him, and that's not saying that the pieces around him were just completely substandard or whatever, but it was not one of the strongest rosters. So, we have a super chat, so we'll get to that. I'm going to mark where I was with Glasswing and go here to Ryan Dawes. Beard looks great, Noon. Any thoughts on who or what position the Buckeyes go after in the portal after spring? First of all, thank you on the beard. I'm still working on it. As I mentioned earlier, taking the beard vitamins that taste like crap. I'm trying to remember to use the beard oil. I forget a lot. But yeah, that's where I am with the beard. I'm marking back where I was with Glasswing. As for the portal, you don't know until you get through spring. You don't know what you need until, Ohio State addressed what it needed in the first portal period. Now, Minnesota just had another big offensive guard enter the portal as a grad transfer like this morning. Like the news came out yesterday, maybe did not get into the portal officially until this morning. There's a lot of semantic issues on when somebody really is in the portal. So I didn't want to get corrected. It's like, well, actually, it was last night. Well, it may have been this morning when their name was there. Ohio State certainly could look at that position and be like, well, we can get this guy. But then again, that's a 1-year rental. If it's a grad transfer, that's one and done more than likely. There are some 2-year grad transfers, but those are kind of rare. So if Ohio State goes through spring, I think a position where they could have to go and get somebody would be quarterback. What does Lincoln Kienholz do? I'm not putting Lincoln Kienholz in the portal. I'm not saying that he's going to leave. he, by all accounts, should be the number 2 quarterback if Sayin truly is the number 1 quarterback. I don't know what that would look like, but you may still need to get another quarterback regardless if your quarterback room is Sayin, Kienholz, and St. Clair. You want to have 4. You could always have, we've got our walk-ons and everything else. You would like to have 4 quote unquote scholarship quarterbacks. Put one of your walk-ons in scholarship. It isn't necessarily that easy. I mean, it is easy. You just wave a pen and that's done. But it isn't that easy to sit there and say, well, we've now filled our account. We're totally cool at 4. Don't have to go that far back in the past to remember when Ohio State needed 3. You need to get to 4. You're in deep trouble at that point. But you don't want to play with no backup at that point. So I think it's important to get to 4. So quarterback, I think there would be something there. I think they've addressed a lot of the needs on the surface. Now, I'm not going to speak anything into existence. I don't want to be that guy. If you suddenly realize that you have some depth issues at certain positions, things change. And the portal is the last opportunity you have to add people with any sort of immediacy. So you can't necessarily predict those types of issues. But if something happens in the short term to where you realize your numbers are askew, then you do that. So it's hard to answer that question now before spring. I mean, again, I think if we see anything that looks like it's off in terms of numbers, we're certainly going to say it. But, the spring portal period is the chance, you have 2 more waves of getting players. The spring portal period, and then when your summer enrollees enroll. And your summer enrollees are all high school kids who do not have the benefit of spring football. So really, you only have the one window to bring in bodies of people who have at least been through collegiate practice and what have you. So you're going to have to assess at that point. That. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Sometimes the thing gets a little wonky and you disappear, and you hit the trackpad the wrong direction and you go away. So don't do that, Kevin. Hopefully you didn't hear me swear. Doug Shepard says probably won't even watch a Super Bowl. We all say that we're not going to watch a Super Bowl, and then at least I don't want to put words in your mouth. I end up watching the Super Bowl. I will say this: I don't watch the NBA finals. I don't really follow the NBA. I mean, I have a team, I grew up watching a team back in the 80s. I want to see them do well, but I just don't really care enough. Let's just keep going here. Christopher says, I waste a lot of money on beard products and don't use them. Yeah, I'm not in any subscription service. I know Beard Club is a club and everything else. I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to use it. I mean, honestly, I would just like to get it to fill out a little bit more and then just have a good system to where I'm not having to pay $14 over at Sports Clips for them to trim it. And where did I just? Oh, I have a local barbershop here in town that actually, it's not terrible if you get a haircut and a beard trim at the same time. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Let's just keep going here. Lisa Sims. Good afternoon. Go Buckeyes. 2024 Natty Champs. Is that a question? Because the answer is yes. Yes, they are. They are. Neil says, Chris, go to a barbershop once a week and let them work on the beard. You see, I like the barbershop I go to, but maybe it's not. I don't know how many people went to Ohio State and like going to Tech's. Like I used to get my haircut at Tech's on campus, and that's like where like Woody Hayes used to get his haircut at Tech's back in the day. It's been there that long. I think it moved from one side of the street to the other since the days that I was on campus. Yeah, it's not a place that smells like the blue liquid that they keep the combs in and everything else. But maybe I need to go sit there. But I just don't want to go to some crazy hipster place or whatever and then end up with some mustache wax curly Q things going on. Look like I'm in Mumford and Sons. I just don't think I could pull that off. I'd look like Mumford's father, maybe grandfather. Let's just keep going here. Most of these kids don't know about anyone before LeBron, and that's just the reality of it. And I try to remind people of that. I mean, yes, you're going to have all the nostalgia and all the feels of so and so coming back to coach, and that's cool. I mean, it's cool for me to sit there and James Laurinaitis being there. I mean, I wasn't in school. I was already out of school. I was already in the media covering the team when Laurinaitis played at Ohio State. I mean, there's something to be said about a coach who looks like he can go out there and run drills with you. I don't know if any offensive lineman is necessarily in their mid 40s is going to want to get out there and get in a stance and really go through the drills or whatever. I mean, Charles is a tough guy. He certainly, I wouldn't put it past him. But, just because it gives you the nostalgic feels doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work on the kids. Here we go. This is an important one from Wayland Media. Kevin, your thoughts on Del Taco setting up shop in Indiana? We have a couple in Ohio. We have one in Whitehall, which is just outside of Reynoldsburg, which is just outside of Pickerington, where I live. So I don't normally go there and do drive-through because it doesn't keep well. But if I'm going to eat it, I'm going to sit there and eat it, which is fine. I really do like Del Taco. They don't know how to wrap burritos well. They leave one end open, and if you turn the bag, it's all going to spill out, which is just never good. But I am excited about that. But I like the fact that there's a Jack in the Box in Indianapolis on the east side off of Post Road. I'll go there and get like the 2 tacos. I'll get like 8, not 16 of them, but like 4 times 2. And you have to eat those there too, because you got to use the taco sauce. And trying to do that while driving is just not a good thing. Just bad news. Robert says, I just try to forget how old I am. You and me both. I mean, I was talking to somebody and they were like telling me their age. I'm like, I would have never seen them. They're like, what are you, like 42? I was like, yeah, I'm 42. I'll take that. Plus 10, plus 1. Ryan Dawes is here, as I said, with the super chat. Hey, Ryan, hope it's all going well with you. Tookie G, regardless of a kid's age, everyone knows Ditka needs to be on the staff yesterday. Well, I mean, yes, as long as he's driving the Bears bus, then yes, he does need to be on the staff as of yesterday. But, all joking aside, there are some differences between Ditka and a guy who, was a major collegiate award winner while at Ohio State, who also would go on and have a pretty nice NFL career. There are various levels of everything else. Troy V, I remember my dad making me watch the Bears when I was 6 because they had this rookie running back that was going to change the Bears to a winner. That was Peyton's rookie year. Besides that, I don't remember much. Yeah. I remember it was 78 or 79, the year that the Rams went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Steelers growing up in Southern California. But again, nobody was a Rams fan, really. No wonder they left. Vince Ferragamo lived in the same city I did. I wasn't really all that impressed. I do remember the 77 and 78 World Series. I don't remember them well. I remember watching them. I really remember 81. I was turning 10 that year because my birthday is late in the year. So I was turning 10. That is probably the first major the first major sporting event, and it was something that was shown on tape delay, but I'm a kid. I'm not watching the news or whatever, and there wasn't Sports Center. The Miracle on Ice. I remember my parents were going to a health club, and I was sitting in the kids' room, but it wasn't really the kids' room, and they had it on TV, and I remember watching it. And I was like, all right, I'm down with this. Didn't understand the global ramifications and everything else, but yeah, I do remember the Miracle on Ice. So that was my first major sports memory. That makes a good question. Maybe we'll talk about that on Monday. That's your homework. Think about what your first major sports memory is, and we will talk about that on the show on Monday. So that is your homework assignment, as we're going to go about 15 more minutes here. Miracle on Ice, and then the 81 World Series. I remember the 81 series really well, still to this day. My dad, who was a prolific swearer, told me that if you use the words too often, they lose their effect. fair enough. But I also say, and I used to say this to my mom when I would get in trouble for swearing. It's like, well, I'm just using the entire English language. I would really just be, it would really be rude to not use all of the words that are out there. You're telling me to expand my vocabulary, buy me these calendars with the new word of the day, S and F and whatever. I mean, those are words too. It never worked well when I did that though. Bentley is well known in the recruiting world for his training school. Ask Carson Hinsman. He has contact with Oregon and Arizona State to train linemen. We can go back and forth on it. I no, I don't feel that way. I don't. Yes, he's got an academy. That's great. I mean, so you should hire, what was that guy's name, Bill Amansky or whatever, to be your baseball coach, because Fred McGriff went, it's great, about like his baseball VHS tapes. I don't mean to minimize things to that level, and I don't want to sound like I'm anti Bentley, but I'm just saying that you, as in not Christopher Sowers, you as in people who I'm talking to, probably have much more of a memory, much more of a thought about him than John Doe and Jim Smith and Bill whatever. So, I mean, it is what it is, and you got to just trust Ryan Day and his decision. If he brings them in an X role or Y role or Z role, then that's great. But I guarantee you, if I went out and I talked to 50 offensive linemen, and I'm not saying just 50 kids in Ohio, I'm not saying 50 kids in Mississippi, 50 offensive linemen, 3 stars or above, and they were all being honest with me. Didn't feel like they're being put on the spot. Didn't feel like they're being punked. How many of them would know who he is? I mean, there might be a couple of, I've heard the name. But how many of them would know who he is? I don't think it's going to be a huge number. Mike Ferguson, the beard is evolving. It is. I mean, something that was big too with the beard club thing that I got was I got a beard brush. So now it's not all, it doesn't look like, I don't know. I don't even want to say it. I mean, it looks a lot better. So I'm happy about that. Lisa Sims, what do I know about the 37 million deficit? Why do outsiders say that we are broke when it's not just football? It's throughout all sports, and there's a lot to it that they don't know about. Don't listen to the outsiders. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're just trying to denigrate Ohio State. They're just trying to get under your skin, and it sounds like they've gotten under your skin. And it's easy for me to say, well, don't do that. They don't know what they're talking about. It is what it is. Ohio State also has the largest athletic department in the nation. What is it, 36 varsity sports, 36, 37. They really don't want to cut any sports. I mean, Ohio State absolutely could, if it wanted to sit there and streamline down to 30 or something, yeah, I mean, it would be very different at that point, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It really means nothing. It's not like teams aren't going to be able to travel or operate or anything like that. It's just one of those reports that's out there. Let me see. Somebody just texted. All right, I'll text Doug. If you're still on, I'll text you back after the show here in 12 minutes. Let me keep scrolling. Christopher Sowers saying that Bachman Miller is an emergency. Yeah, he's not even going to be taking reps at quarterback. So I mean, just because it would be more likely that they would sit there and run Wildcat with somebody like the Ted Ginn situation in the Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma State, that they would run Wildcat before they would get to a position of where they would have to completely play somebody who is completely miscast. Let me just keep Do we see what else is going on here? Um, Used to be Rick's on 256. Now is something else. Are we talking about the barbershop? Randy's. It's Randy's now. I mean, I know there's a Randy's barbershop. I don't know if there was I don't remember Rick's, but Randy's is over there by where Twins Tavern is and the Squeaks Lounge. Christopher Sowers, I live in Whitehall, so you're not far away from me. Maybe I'll bump into you sometime over at Two Tones Brewing. I don't get there that often. I really tried to cut back on the drinking, just personal, finances and just general health type of thing. But I do love brewery life, and that's a nice little place to go in. One day I'm going to get in there and go play on euchre night, but it just hasn't happened yet. Let me just keep. Let me keep going on there. I guess there's somebody who loves me and is being delusional as well, but I'm not gonna. We're just trying to get to the 1 hour mark, and if we get up a little short, then we get up a little short. I do have to meet somebody here at some point, and again, I've got a call at 6. Probably need just a lot of stuff going on. How about the basketball win last night? I know that this is not really a basketball community, but to come back after a sizable deficit against Maryland, Bruce Thornton, 31 points, including a banked 3 to put the Buckeyes up and to hold on for that win. I think that was a huge defining win, season defining type of win. People like somebody was like program defining. I'm like, this program's had success in the past. It's been fleeting. And the reason why I say that is somebody was Tookie G was talking about Holtman's buyout. A lot of times they pass the hat amongst boosters to get to that. But, there's various numbers as to why you get there. Mozart's Ghost, Fred McGriff tapes, LOL, man. I remember those commercials with the tapes and how to run baseball drills, back to back national AAU champs. It's great. Yeah. I couldn't watch cartoons without seeing that like 100 times. I mean, without at least 100 times. Keep scrolling down. We're getting to the bottom of here. Bill Evans says basketball is a time passer until spring football. And Mike Ferguson says, what is basketball? It's a sport that they have a building over there off of Olentangy and Lane. And sometimes there's concerts and sometimes there's hockey and then sometimes there's basketball. And the women's team, it was like in the top 10. They just lost a tough one at USC, I think it was. I know it was West Coast. I think it was USC. And then the men just won a big game against number 18 Minnesota. So no, it's fun. It's fun. No, I don't get out there to cover a lot of games anymore. I need to find my credential. I don't know where the hell it is. Maybe when I'm done with this, I can run out to my car and see if it is in my center console, because they gave it to us like even before we got our football credentials this year. They're like, now don't lose this. I'm like, I'm toast. I'm absolutely going to lose it. And there you go. Mike Ferguson said the last OSU basketball game I went to was in the NIT tournament win ages ago. Yeah, I think that's around the end of when I haven't been in 2 years, more or less. I think I maybe went to a couple games last year, but I'm not. It's been 2 or 3 years since I've gone on the regular. Neil Harris says, love all Buckeye sports. And that, I was doing a show up in the Mansfield area. Like I called in a radio show up in the Mansfield area, and we talked about this and just about the success of Ohio State athletics right now and how things are going well. You win in football. You get to the Final Four with one of your soccer teams. Women's basketball is doing so well. Men's basketball maybe is trending up a little bit. Women's hockey is playing really well. I mean, Ohio State's men's tennis is, a national powerhouse, especially on the indoor side of things. There's a lot going on. I mean, there are a lot of things outside of football, but we know that football is what gets everybody in the door. it's what gets you in the door, but there's a lot of great athletes, a lot of great opportunities within the Ohio State program. I do want to touch on this one with Mozart's Ghost. Ryan Day made a big donation to mental health programs. Yes, as part of his new contract, Ryan and Nina Day did pledge $1 million toward mental health initiatives. They've been very active with like juvenile mental health, things of that nature, all very important issues, to me as well. So, he has been a champion of doing a lot of stuff there. Don't necessarily need to get into a lot of his backstory with his father. That's all pretty well covered at this point. So, yeah, I think that it is important to have your causes. And I think that, with, Urban and Shelley Meyer were very involved with the Cruise for Cancer. I know Jim Trussell certainly had his causes. John Cooper had his causes, but, we're looking at such a huge difference in dollar figures from what coaches were being paid during John Cooper's era to what they're being paid now in Ryan Day's era. And it's just amazing where all of that has gone. Again, you've got coordinators now that are making a lot more money than head coaches were not all that long ago. We're getting close to wrapping up. I'm just getting to the last couple of comments. Bill Evans, have a great weekend. YouTube, Bill, I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Don't enjoy too many ribs or wings or queso or whatever. It's going to mean more time. More sweat time for that. Cheryl says, supporting the Lady Buckeye team, doing well for being a young team. I mean, obviously, Cody McMahon is a tremendous player. And then they bring in Jelani Cambridge. And, I'm hearing a lot more conversation about Cambridge than I'm hearing about Cody at this point. So, Cambridge is a special player. I remember when she was getting ready to make her an announcement, and a buddy of mine who covers LSU basketball is like, it's going to be you guys. And I was like, well, I better read up about it. I better read up about it. Bill says, it's just the missus and me making homemade pizza. That's fantastic. That sounds so good. I have a pizza steel, but I had like a high heat smoker that like the auger got jammed in. So if anybody is good at like repairing augers and things like that, like on smokers and is in this area, drop me a line, because I am mechanically moronic. I cannot do any of that stuff. I can cook. That's about it. I can cook. I don't know how to do anything else. And I have of my gas grill is having an issue, and I don't know how to fix it. Just basically sat too long, and like some of the wire connections off of the igniter got messed up. And then the smoker, the one smoker, I had the auger jam, and then I do have my big smoker, and I'd need to figure that out. Ryan Dawes, super chat. Let's hear it for Kevin Noon, folks. Thank you, Ryan. You're more than kind. You're more than kind. I do this for y'all. I am doing a better job of doing more shows a week, trying to do as many of them live, because people enjoy the live shows more than the tape shows. I am working on maybe getting a couple of tape shows here in the next couple of weeks. Start talking about the NFL draft. Start talking about the draft, at least the combine. So we'll get that figured out. I had one that I kept wanting to get back to, but I don't know where it is. Well, I think we've gotten to the big point. Lisa, great show. Have a great weekend, everyone. There you go. Yeah, that's it. So I want to thank everybody. We'll let you guys continue to fight about Texas and Ohio State in the chat or whatever. But I want everybody to have a safe and happy and food-filled weekend with the Super Bowl. Even though I don't like either of the teams, doesn't mean you don't have to like either of the teams. Enjoy the commercials. Watch the Puppy Bowl on Animal Channel or Animal Planet or whatever that channel is. I watch it every year. I DVR it. So check that out if you've never seen it. It's a lot of fun. Yes, it is kind of hokey, syrupy. It's meant for kids and old ladies who, don't have anything else to watch, but I watch it, and it's good time. So until then, enjoy.